Good evening everyone, my name is Caroline. I'm your verbal trainer for today. Can all of you hear me clearly before we start the session? Maybe you all have a chat box there. You all can probably write yes or no if I'm audible, not audible, just to get an idea if everybody can hear me clearly. Thank you very much, Vishwanathan, Akshat, thank you very much. So I'll start the session. Welcome everyone to this demo class for SAT. My name is Caroline. I'm going to be your SAT trainer for verbal. Now a little bit of history about myself. Well, I've been teaching SAT for the last 8 or 9 years in fact, and I've been associated with KP for more than 5 years. And it's been a long relationship, and it's something that I always like doing. English is my mother tongue, it's something that I'm very comfortable with. So that's just a little bit about me. Without delaying it any further, we'll start very quickly with the introduction on SAT and what happens in this examination. So to give you a little bit of introduction of what the examination actually is. The SAT examination is, you all pretty much know for sure since you all are attending the demo session. The entrance examination basically is for you to get admission into university. You all give the examination during your 12th, some of you may even give it after your 11th class or something like that. The entrance examination totally has a score of 1600. 800 is divided equally between the math section and what we call the verbal section, which is the English section. So you have over here a math section which takes up a maximum of 800 points. The absolute minimum is 200, it's not 0. It essentially means that if you really have every single answer wrong or you've not attempted the paper at all, you still get 200. Which is 0. So the maximum score is 800 in each section. You have the math section giving you 800 maximum. You have the evidence based reading and writing, which in simpler terms is the English or the verbal section, giving you a maximum of 800 points, a minimum of 200 points. So the total score in the SAT is 1600 that you can score. Good scores are anywhere above 1400 to the 1450 criteria. That is, if you're looking to get into your A grade colleges, if you all have certain Ivy Leagues in mind that you all want to join, those are the scores that you all are looking to attempt. Going ahead. So the first section in the examination, in fact when you all even attempt the examination, the first section that you all will be looking at, or for that matter that you all will be attempting, is the reading section. Now the reading section is essentially what it is. You read the passage and you answer questions. So there are a total of 5 passages. The entire section is 1 hour and 5 minutes long, and there are a total of 52 questions that come in this section. It seems like 1 hour and 5 minutes is a long time. It can tend to be a bit boring because all you do is read and you answer questions. Trust me, it's not. It's actually not that enough if you do not have practice in this particular section. You tend to read, you tend to overread, you tend to get a bit confused, and then what happens is you tend to miss out on questions, which is a problem in the SAT, because the advantage that you have in the SAT is you all can mark any answer and you all don't have negative points. So you start off probably very well, you'll take some time, you'll answer the questions, and then what happens is, because then you all tend to be in a hurry because probably you're losing out on time, so you may tend to attempt in a rash way, you may tend to mark a couple of wrong answers. At least attempting an answer is better than leaving it unattempted, because if the answer is wrong, the option is wrong, you at least don't lose a point. Like in some other entrance examinations, you tend to lose a quarter of a point if you do not mark the right answer. So as I said, the reading section, the first section, 1 hour 5 minutes long, 52 questions in total. Now the 5 passages that we're talking about over here, I said there were 5 passages. Now the first passage is a fiction passage. When you say it's a fiction passage, it's basically a literature based story, let's call it that, easy way to explain it. It's going to be the first passage that you can choose to attempt. It's going to be relatively easy compared to the other passages. That particular passage is followed by 2 social studies passages, which is then followed by 2 science based passages. Now, in the section, you are not obligated to attempt passages in their order, but definitely what you are obligated to do is you are obligated to attempt each section in that order. You have to attempt the reading section first. You cannot choose probably you're better in writing or probably you're better in math. You cannot choose to attempt those sections first. You have to attempt the reading section first. But in the reading section, you can choose to attempt which passage you feel comfortable in first. All right? Am I clear until now? If there are any questions, keep typing them out in the comment section for me. I'll keep looking at it, and as and when I read your questions, I'll keep answering them. All right? And also, before I forget, I wanted you all to know that this demo is being recorded live and is going to be uploaded to the YouTube channel for KP. So you all can go over there, subscribe to the channel, have a look at the demo, probably again and again. If you all want to have a couple of friends who want to look at the demo, feel free to do something like that. All right? Moving on. Now, some short details of what the reading section is about, what the passages are about. One of the passages normally you have in every English examination that you've probably given is you have one passage and then you answer some questions based on that passage. In the SAT verbal section, it's slightly different. You will definitely have a passage where you answer questions, but in addition to that, you also have passages where there are 2 passages together as a part of one big passage, and you have to read both those passages together and answer questions for that passage or for those passages together. You have passages where you have a passage and then you have a graph or you have a chart at the end of that passage, and then you answer questions based on the graph or based on that chart. Okay? It's not that different from any other kind of passage that you would read. All it needs is a bit of practice. That's all I would say. It's nothing new. The difficulty level is high school level. It's, you don't have very difficult words. If you all are relatively comfortable with your reading, if you all can read at a relatively good speed, not fast, you don't have to skim through, you do not have to really make sure that you're reading fast to be able to complete the paper on time, you all will be very okay attempting this particular section. So, as we said, some passages will have 2 smaller passages as part of one big passage. Some will have graphs, sometimes a chart, a graph, depends. And of course, the difficulty is high school to early college level. So, with that, you know, it's not going to be very difficult when it comes to vocab based in the passage. Okay, checking any comments if any. All right, moving on. So, a little idea on the types of questions that appear in the reading passage, in the reading section. Now, I told you there are in total 52 questions that you all have to attempt in 65 minutes. That's 1 hour and 5 minutes, right? So, SAT, they have segregated types of questions and maximum number of those questions that can be asked in this particular section. Out of that, you have the first type, which is 10 word in context questions. So, there are going to be 10 questions which are called the word in context type. Now, what's a word in context type of question? It's very simple. It's vocabulary related questions. That's it. What they're going to do is, they're not going to give you a difficult word or something like that. Absolutely not. They're going to pick out one word probably from the passage. When they pick out that one word, the question is going to be, in context of the passage, what does this word mean? So, you don't even have to know the absolute real meaning of that word, because we know sometimes English words can tend to mean different things in context of a different passage or a different sentence. So in context of that particular passage, as you are reading the sentence, you need to basically figure out what that word means. So those are word in context type questions. In the SAT examination, this type of question is classified as an easy question. When you keep practicing in class, when we do questions in class, when you all will practice at home, with practice, you all ideally would be getting all these questions correct in the examination. The next type of question is called a command of evidence type of question. What happens over here is, there are basically two questions. Of course, there are two questions, but the answer to both those questions is just one answer. You have one question, say probably question number 5, they're asking you a particular question, they're giving you 4 options, and then what they do in question number 6, they say, but which sentence in the entire passage gives you this answer to question 5. So you have 2 questions clubbed together where the answer is just one. If you answer question number 6, you automatically get the answer to question number 5. If you've already got the answer to question number 5, you will already get the answer automatically to question number 6. So what happens in these type of questions is, though they are not classified, though they are not really classified as an easy question, what happens is they're classified as a medium question, where because there are cases where if you get one answer right, there are chances, in fact more than 90% chance, that you're going to get the other question right as well. With a bit of practice, though, because these questions are relatively new to students like yourself when you all attempt this examination, with practice you all will understand that these questions also tend to have a particular pattern. You can identify them very easily. The answers are pretty straightforward. You realize where you can find them in the passage and so on. Now, the last type of questions, in fact 32 questions, belong to a category called analysis. Now, analysis is a very broad term when it comes to explaining what types these questions are. So what they essentially mean, what, or shall I say, what types of questions does this analysis contain? You have questions such as, you all definitely have done this before, questions such as, what option summarizes the passage as a whole? Say for example, you have 4 options, which option is the best summary of this passage? Then you have the narrator, or basically the author of the passage is trying to explain something in a particular line. What does that explanation mean? Or what is the author trying to mention? Or what is the author trying to explain? Something like that. So these types of questions, what happens over here is, you need a complete understanding of the passage in order to attempt these type of questions. Because if they're going to ask you the summary of a passage, even though this question might be question number 1 in your sequence of questions in the section, you're not going to be able to answer the question immediately, because probably you've only read the passage once and you're still not very familiar with what the answer option could be. With a little bit of tips, with a little bit of identifying how you can keep these questions aside, attempt another question, gain more insight into the passage, what we do in class is, we try to segregate these types of questions. So basically you will eventually attempt these questions at the end. And when you attempt these questions at the end, you wouldn't have to go back to the passage, read the entire passage once again, because by the time you've attempted all the other questions or all the easier type of questions, you already have an idea of what the answer to these types of questions should be. Okay? What we do in class, especially in the reading section, is essentially this. I don't need to teach you how to read. I don't need to teach you vocab. What we basically need to practice to ace the SAT examination is this: managing your time, identifying all the easy questions that you must attempt, because no matter what, each question has the same point for it. So if you answer a difficult question or if you answer an easy question, you're still going to get that same point. There is no benefit in attempting a difficult question and leaving an easy question out. So what you want to do in your examination is make sure you absolutely attempt all the easy questions classified easy. I mean, you may find it slightly more difficult, or in fact you may find a difficult question very easy, but the classified easy questions is something that you absolutely will end up attempting. What you will end up doing at the end of our class is, because of all the tests that we do, because of the practice that we do in class, what you will also end up doing is maximizing your time during this section. In the beginning, you will realize that 65 minutes is way too less. For 5 passages, you get a bit tired, a bit of fatigue sets in, and what happens is your concentration wavers here and there. So towards the end of the section, you tend to get tired and you may attempt wrong answers to those particular questions. We try with practice, with a little bit of tips, to understand which types of passages we should be attempting first, which types of questions we should be attempting first, how do we identify those types of questions so that we finish all the easy ones, keep them aside, and then we tackle all the difficult ones together. Okay? The good thing about SAT, it's in fact a very good thing about this examination, is basically the questions appear in the same order as the material in the passage, which means, now leave aside the questions which are based on the summary of the entire passage. This doesn't apply to those type of questions, but what I mean is basically the command of evidence questions, the word in context type of questions. If you have question number 1, 2, 3, the answer to question number 1 will be right on top, the answer to question number 2 will be below that, the answer to question number 3 will be below that. It follows a sequence in the passage. You wouldn't have the answer to question number 3 above question number 1. It won't happen in the examination unless you have a summary question where they're asking you the entire summary of the passage. It doesn't apply there. So the difficulty also is not going to be first question easy, next question medium, the third question difficult. No. If it's your lucky day, you're probably going to have a sequence of easy questions. If probably that day was not on your side, you may start with a difficult question, then it may follow an easy question or something like that. Okay? Moving on, do you all have any questions regarding the reading section? Because now I'm going to move on to the writing section. Let me have a look at the comments. If you all have any questions, feel free to write them out in the comments. I will read them and answer them. Okay. So moving on, that was all about the reading section that we spoke about right now. The other part of SAT verbal is the writing section. The writing section, as most of us know it, is the grammar section and the logic section. That is, it's called the grammar and the logic section in SAT. What happens over here is, you still have passages. You do not have individual questions. You still have a passage and you have questions based on those passages. You have certain lines which are underlined, and then you have questions on the half of the page where you read the question. It will be the part which is underlined and you answer accordingly. What happens over here is, this particular section is a relatively short section. It's only 35 minutes long, but the number of questions that you attempt is 44. Because it's a grammar oriented question, because it's a logic oriented, it's a grammar oriented section, it's a logic oriented section, the number of minutes that you require to attempt each question is lower. It works, it definitely works to an advantage, but sometimes without practice, it can be a disadvantage. What is needed, most importantly, in this particular section, what is needed is a relatively good command and brushing up over your grammar skills that you learned in school. And when I say grammar skills, it's your nouns, pronouns, subject verb, punctuations, stuff like that. Stuff that you all already learned until grade 10th, but it may seem difficult if it's not, if it doesn't have a solid base in your mind. These type of questions can seem difficult. So let's talk about initially what this section entails. So this particular section has 4 passages in total, right? There are 4 passages in total. There are 11 questions per passage, all right, which essentially makes it 44 questions in the entire section. And in at least one passage, you're going to have an extension with either one graph or you're going to have one chart. Questions are going to definitely be based on the graph and the chart, or the chart, whatever is there. Okay? What types of passages form the writing section? The types of passages are such. Now, I mean, it's just an idea what these passages are. There is no way that you all can go and read material before to understand if this is a passage that's going to come in the examination. No, it's just to give you a broad idea about the topics that these passages are on. The first one is a non-fiction narrative. Is basically, when I say non-fiction narrative, it's not a story, it's just a narration with either a conclusion, no conclusion, or just basically a narration about some topic. There are 1 or 2 argumentative passages. When I mean argumentative passages, what happens is the entire passage may be split into 2 or 3 paragraphs, and there would be probably one paragraph not agreeing with the other paragraph, author in one passage not agreeing with the author in the other passage, and so on. So those types of passages are called argumentative passages. You also have 1 or 2 information related or just plain explanation related passages. All right, this is just to give you a broad idea what kinds of passages appear in the writing section. Now, moving on, like I told you, the context of questions that appear in the reading section, we also have types of questions or context of questions that appear in the writing section. All right. Now, coming back to my main point, the writing section is essentially 2 sections combined together. It's the grammar section and it's your logic section. All right. Now, the first type of question is called, the first type of questions are questions on organization. When I mean organization, sometimes sentences in the passage will be jumbled up. The question will ask you to organize those sentences in a proper manner. Those are types called sequence. Sometimes they will ask you what is the main idea of this entire passage, which is similar to the reading section that I just spoke about. Also, you have data that is interpreted from a graph. If this passage has a graph as an extension, you will have questions based on interpreting that graph. Okay. The other type of question, or for that matter, the second type of question, are questions on style and expression. Now, style and expression, they seem like very literature oriented and very sophisticated words. They're very easy. Basically what they mean, the first type is idioms. You remember in school you studied idioms. To give you an example of an idiom, make hay while the sun shines. So it's basically an idiom. What it means is when you have the opportunity, make the maximum use of the opportunity. So there will probably be an idiom in the sentence that is underlined, and the 4 options will basically give you the answer. So one of the 4 options will be the answer to that idiom, and you need to find out which is the correct answer. Wordiness. SAT does not like over explanation of any sentence. What happens sometimes is, in order to confuse students a little bit, a particular option, if it can be written in a very short and concise manner, is purposely written in a very long way using many words. SAT does that to confuse students. Though it may seem that the longer option is absolutely correct, it is never correct. because if a particular question can be attempted and can be answered in the least number of words making maximum sense, SAT prefers that answer option. So to explain further, we'll do these type of questions in class. Those types of questions are called questions based on wordiness, where there are too many words in an option, and basically you need to figure out if the answer option really needed those many words, or it could have been a shorter option making the same sense. Okay? Awkwardness, redundancy and repetition is basically very similar to wordiness. Redundancy and repetition is using similar words together in a sentence which mean the same thing. The company publishes the annual report every year. If you have an annual report, it is understood by common sense that it is going to be published every year only. Annual means once a year. So when you say an annual report every year, you are basically using two different types of words to explain the same thing. So that type of question falls in this category, a redundancy and repetition type of question. Awkwardness is basically a grammar error, making the sentence wrong. They call it awkward, something like that. Word in context, again, similar to the reading passage, where I said they will pick out one particular word from the passage and they will ask you, based on the passage, what does this word mean? Okay? The next type of question is question on sentences. Here is where your grammar skills are tested. This particular topic and the last particular topic over here is essentially where your grammar skills are tested in SAT. You have grammar topics like subject and predicate, which we've learnt in school. You have clauses, you've got sentence combination, you've got parallel structure, active passive voice, punctuation, modifiers. All this definitely you all have done in school. You all have done active passive voice in school. You all have definitely done punctuation, definitely done clauses, independent clause, dependent clause. Combining sentences, yes, you all have done it, but you all probably do not know what this combining sentences actually means. We discussed that in class. It's basically when you join two sentences together which makes complete sense. Probably not done something called modifiers. You all have done it in school actually, but you all do not know that it's called modifier. It's a part of English grammar. Parallel structure, again, part of English grammar. We study, what we do in class is basically we study all these topics. We practice as much as we can all these topics to get y'all thorough in it completely. Because if you all understand these particular grammar topics in SAT, the good thing is sometimes these rules that apply in these grammar topics over here are also applied in the logic based questions. You cannot have an answer option grammatically wrong in any case. So if you all understand these topics which we attack first in the writing section, you all will then also be able to attempt and attack all these types of questions which are based on logic. The last one, based on standard English usage, again is grammar related questions. You have the noun verb agreement, you have verbs, you have pronouns, and you have comparisons, which is your degree, comparative degree, superlative degree, topics like that. Pronouns you all already know, verbs you all know, action word, noun verb agreement also you all know. So these are the types of questions that you all will be attempting in the writing section. Okay, moving on. Are there any questions from anybody? Type them out in the comment section, please. Okay. So we have a few minutes left before I finish the demo. What I wanted you all to do, I've explained the reading section, I've explained the writing section. what we've done here is I've got a couple of questions for y'all. Now, y'all can see it on the screen. This is a question. There are 4 options to this question. I'll give you all 1 minute. Okay, it's just to give you an idea what the SAT section is like. This is part of the writing section. So I want to give you an idea what the SAT writing section is like. So take 1 minute, all right, and in the comment section, just type out what you think is the correct answer, all right, and send it to me. So basically what you need to do in this question is, this is the portion that is underlined. There may be an error in this portion of the sentence. What you need to do is figure out if there is no error, or if there is an error in this sentence, for whatever reason there is an error, you need to figure out what may be the correct option. Once you all think you all know what the answer is, type it out in the comment section and send it to me. Nobody else will be able to see the answer option that you send, so don't worry about that. So there is no chance of copying. All right, I see some answers here already. Okay, so majority of you got the answer right, and the answer option is indeed C. I'll explain it to you now. So basically this part of the sentence is underlined. There's probably an issue with the sentence. However, foods that naturally contain harmful substances, full stop, these may be permitted. Now, when you attempt an examination like the SAT, even though you have only this particular portion underlined, you cannot only read this. I just read it out, it didn't make sense. So what you have to do is, you definitely need to start reading from the beginning. So when you start reading from the beginning, foods containing any poisonous or hazardous substances are defined as adulterated and prohibited by the FDA. However, foods that naturally contain harmful substances, full stop, these may be permitted. When I read it itself, I know that there is something wrong here. You have however, comma, foods that naturally contain harmful substances, and then the sentence abruptly stops with a full stop. So for sure, it cannot be option A, because the sentence is actually wrong, right? Let's go to option B. So you have Food and Drug Act, full stop, which naturally contain harmful substances. So you end the sentence with Food and Drug Act, and then you say which naturally contain. This is odd, because it kind of gives the meaning that the Food and Drug Act naturally contain harmful substances, which is wrong. This is not what the sentence is trying to convey. Option B, definitely wrong. We know it's answer option C, so let's look at D and figure out why D is wrong. So you have prohibited by the FDA, foods that naturally contain harmful substances. However, these may be permitted if the amount of substance does not ordinarily injure. The issue with this particular option is this part here. When we study more in class, when we do questions like this in class, you will figure out when you have 2 commas and you have a word in between that comma, or you have a set of words in between that comma, that word can be removed and the sentence should still make complete sense. The problem is, over here, when this word is removed, this word in between these 2 commas is removed, foods that naturally contain harmful substances, these may be permitted. The sentence doesn't make complete sense, which is why Answer option D is also wrong. We know it's answer option C, but let's look at the question, or let's look at the answer and see what it sounds like. Because at the end of the day, I mean, you can use all the rules that you have with English grammar, you can use all your rules with logic. At the end of the day, if the sentence rely on your gut, if the option doesn't sound correct, if something is missing, you may not be able to put a finger on it and figure out what is exactly wrong. But if it doesn't sound right, the answer option probably is not right. Okay? So let's read answer option C. However, so you have prohibited by the FDA, full stop. However, foods that naturally contain harmful substances may be permitted if the amount of the substance does not ordinarily injure. The sentence makes complete sense. This particular sentence inserted in the main passage makes complete sense, which is why answer option C is correct. Okay? We have a couple of questions over here. Let me look at it. Okay, so we have a question over here, if the SAT is accepted by Indian engineering colleges or it's only for foreign universities. SAT of late has been started to be accepted or is accepted in not all the engineering colleges, like you have your CET entrance and all your IIT entrances or your other types of entrances which are state level entrances, but they are definitely accepted in the Indian colleges as well. What you would need to do is you would need to identify those colleges, you need to check with them if the particular college that probably you want to seek admission into, if that particular college is accepting SAT or no. But yes, there are several colleges in India that also accept SAT now. It's not only foreign universities. Okay. All right. So we're running out of time now. So I'll end this particular session over here. Again, this session is being recorded. If you want to go back, refer to this session again. If you want to have your friends look at the session of anything, is going to be uploaded to the YouTube channel. So please go back over there. You all can have a look at the session again. And I hope to see you guys in class very soon. Okay? Thank you very much.
All right, good evening everyone. So wonderful session from Caroline. I mean, like, I'm already geared up. I was listening to it and I believe every one of you have been geared up. A good day to select for this particular session, day before a weekend. So without taking a lot of your time, you have been through what KP is, it's a pioneer in delivering the best results in industry. You have met your verbal trainer, so you are in safe hands. Now we'll be talking on numbers. Now we'll be talking on triangles, alpha, beta, theta, and this is all our journey would be, like in all total, right? So 3 things to check before we start. First, I'm audible, so if you could just quickly type in yes, so that I'm confirmed with the fact that yeah, I'm pretty audible to you guys. Secondly, your comments would be on the chat. I'll be able to see it, I'll answer, right? And third thing is the slides, right? So there's nothing much we have to do. I'll be talking a lot of things, but before that, just a brief idea. It's been more than I would say 7-8 years I've been training on SAT math, and 800 has been scored many a times. It's have been scored many a times. So 800, 760, 780 is something, as per my experience, which I feel is, I wouldn't say it's easy. Nothing is easy in this world, right? But I mean, you need to actually gear up yourself in that particular fashion so that you get accommodated to it, right? Because there is a difference between what we learn in school, the way we solve math in school, and there's a difference when this kind of test industry asks you to solve. First thing, no one gonna check your solution. If you mark your answer B, that is correct, okay? So now how did you get that answer out of the whole universe? No one gonna ask you for sure, right? So my focus is on the slide, my focus is on the chat, my focus is on the camera. Anything if you have, just write it. I'll be definitely answering you once I put my thoughts onto the various slides. So there are 4 major things that I would be talking on the set part. First, SAT math sections and the question types, right? So what exactly SAT math is all about and what all question types. So question types is like, there are only 2 frame of questions that we're going to deal with in the whole SAT, right? Secondly, the resource. SAT, I like this part of SAT. I mean, they always going to give us, some resources, some kind of resources therein where we could use it while answering the questions. Now how does it look like? We will just see it, and it's gonna look like the same way in your exam as well, the official exam that you're gonna give from the College Board SAT, right? Third thing that we're going to talk about is the allowed calculator list, because now as we're dealing with SAT math, if I have to find a trigonometry inverse functions, or if I have to do some decimal calculations up to maybe like let's say 2 significant figures, or like let's say standard form, then I have to definitely get into the decimal calculations for this, right? Or calculator would be definitely needed. So we'll be talking on all the allowed calculator list. Of course, yes, I'm not gonna get through all the the names of all those, but again, it's there. It gets quite updated many a times, right? But that is something which you don't have to worry about, because you're gonna get always all the updates regarding it, right, during your sessions. So you don't have to much worry about it. We're gonna talk about the SAT math topic. Now this is a detail wise discussion that we're gonna do. This is majorly on what SAT math comprises of, which topic, how does it look like, right? And so there would be, I would say 90% there could be a commonness of the point that those particular topics, so it would be much better for us to talk on this, right? And then last, some SAT math question we're gonna see. I don't want you to solve exactly. This is only a case wherein we're gonna always talk about how do you actually look through. Okay, so let's just start with this. This is the agenda for the day, and we're gonna quickly run through set questions. There would be 2 sections. So when you start your SAT, right, you have the English section, which is already covered by Caroline. So you have a evidence-based reading, writing. So 2 sections are always done. Then the third section, which is a non-calculator section, right? It is completely math. So it's a non-calculator math section. You're not allowed to use calculators. So think smartly. The questions would also not accept or expect anything which is all about a lot of calculations from it, right? So it's a non-calculator. You can quickly do it mental calculations. You can form a lot of those from comprehensions out of it, right? So this is a non-calculator section, 20 questions in total. Now there are 2 question types that you're gonna see in the next slides for a while. One is problem solving, in which you get an option. Another is grid-in. Now what does this grid-in, how does it look like? We're just going to see into the next slides for sure, but it doesn't come with option. So there is a statement, there's a question, right? Space is given, you could solve there, right? And then the best thing is you just have to write that particular answer in the grid box. You need to oval it, you need to circle it, and that particular answer would be into a kind of a fraction. So you could write like 5/2, you could write 2.5. That is something, this all thing is something that I'm gonna take care of during your session. So you don't have to much worry about. The more you're gonna give your diagnostic test, you will be habitual of it. So that is not at all a big concern for us. Only thing which I want to tell here is this is one of the key section. This is one of the key section. I'm telling it to you because these 20 questions are in your hand. I'm telling it to you, 20 on 20 is a piece of a cake. I'm not over expecting, I'm not overburdening you. I'm telling it to you with my experience, this is achievable. And experts, students have, experts or students, I call them experts, okay? So, they have achieved it, right? You don't have to rush. You don't have to get overexcited looking at the easy question. You don't have to be very much nervous looking at something which doesn't fall onto your plate. Be neutral, be calm, consolidated, and you will have a successful journey when it comes to SAT math, okay? So this is something I'm gonna wrap up now. So non-calculator will have 20 questions in total. Calculator will have 38 questions. Now in this 20 questions, 15 would be your MCQs, 5 would be your grid-in. You don't have to cram it, okay? You don't have to cram it. There would be proper directions given to you once you are about to get the gridding questions. So first 15 questions are MCQs. Then you're going to have a direction based page. You could read out, you could understand how to fill in the the answers into the grid. That would be, the grid will not be there on your booklet, the question booklet, it will be there in your answer sheet. Okay, so now that is how it's gonna be done. But you know what, once you are habitual of giving a lot of mock test and diagnostic, you are very much habitual of, it becomes your daily routine, so that will not at all hamper any sort of your progress. So this is a very simple calculation, 15 and 5, right? Wherein on the other hand, if you see calculator sections, right, which is like 38 questions. Now this is the key. This will actually, see, it does say that it is a calculator section. It will need calculator for sure, I don't deny to this fact, but I always believe that you can, calculator is a machine, right? So if you're gonna put 25 times 25 in the calculator, it would display 625, right? I guess every one of you would agree to this. 25 times 25 is 625. I type it on the on the calculator, it will give me 625. If I type 20 times 20, it's gonna give me 400. So now is machine automatically doing it? I'm not using a AI based calculators here who are gonna just learn out through what I mean to do, right? So it's a very simple thing. It's a very, very simple thing is that you need to make sure one thing, which is that whatever calculation of squares maybe, or whatever calculations of cubes maybe, if you could have those into your mind, your calculations would be quick. This is the first step of the day, I would tell you. This is the first step. You could write it as a tip. You can sign it as $1, write it as a tip. If you could remember squares up to 30, cubes up to 15, and the best thing is if you could have a quick calculations on the fractions, like so 1 over 9 in terms of percentage maybe. So 1 over 9, 1 over 8, 1 over 7 is 14 point something, 1 over 6 is 16 point something, 1 over 5 is 20%. This will give you a quick calculation, because I'll just ask you one simple question. If I say 50% of something, you need to be very much quick enough to do half of it. I don't want you to write 50% and then convert that into like 50 over 100, then convert that into 1 over 2. Now these 3 steps are not needed, and so a person who jumps right away from 50% to half of something, right, and dividing by 2 is very easy. Either you divide an even number or an odd number, right? So if you 50%, if you're directly doing half of it, 25% if you're doing a quarter of it, right, 75% if you're doing 3/4 of it, this is the tricks, this is the shortcuts that everyone demands. There is nothing called a Bible of the shortcuts that someone would actually develop and give it to you. And ideally, let me be very honest, if I give you 100 shortcuts also, if you don't practice, you are not a this is not a kind of exam that you're gonna sit into the test room and just look at the question and just apply the shortcuts. No, it develops over the time. And when will you develop it? This would be during your practice sessions. This would be during your sessions. I don't only focus on telling you the concepts. I always focus on looking at the options, how the best we could solve this. Was solution needed, or it could have only be done looking at the options? So there are a couple of things which we need to talk and which we need to discuss during the sessions for sure. Like this is just a demo right now, so we need to be very much into a timeline. Now this is how, right, so on the right, if you see, this is how the MCQ questions look like, right? So it's very simple, like if 3x minus y blah blah blah, what is the value of this? Exponent question, one of the most easiest one. There are 4 options. Value cannot be determined from the information given. So this is not that much rare, but again you don't have too much worry about. You need to find one of the values. But if you see SAT love traps, I'm telling it to you, SAT love traps. They will often love traps on this part. I'm telling it to you. See, they're dealing with 8 here, okay? They're actually giving you the numbers in terms of 2, 4 and 8. They will not at all give you the numbers in terms of like 27 or something that has no resemblance with 2 or something. So always make sure that you don't over jump, you don't rush, you don't get overexcited. This is what I said earlier. This is something I'm gonna repeat many a times during my session also. Don't overexcite yourself, because a one mistake of a minus sign can actually make your answer change such a way that is also given as an option, right? I'll come back to that particular point. So this is what, you know, the MCQ look like, and this is how the gradient looks like on the left, if you see right now. So this is a whole question. Now this particular gradient part that you see would be actually into your answer sheet, and let's say if I have solved this particular question, right, and let's say I got my answer as like 7/3. So what I'll do is like I'll write 7, I'll just mark 7 here. So 7 is here, right? I'll just circle. Then there is this symbol, which is divide symbol. Then this is 3, and I'll just write 3 here. So whatever you do here on the first 4 blocks, that is something you need to actually bubble. So that's a bubble, and you just need to fill it, and that is how you could easily manage to do so, right? So far, if you have any question, you could directly put onto the chat. I'll definitely pay attention to it and I'll answer that. And let me go ahead. Now, this is the resource. This is something that's gonna look as it is during your exam. So, and the best thing is, it's in section number 3 as well as in section number 4 as well. Okay, they're gonna give you all these formulas, right? Now, what are the major formulas? Now, my student will not need this formula for circle, okay? Because they would be already prepared for sectors, for quarter, and they will be prepared for you know, semicircles also. But the concern is, you know, if this is at least given, we are into a better position. But now, let me tell you the irony behind it. They are giving you the 1/3 pi r square h, that's a volume of a cone. And over here, if you see, they have been talking about the sphere, which is 4/3 pi r cube. They're talking about the pyramid here. That's good, right? They're not giving about the surface area. And surface area, curved surface, total surface, when it comes to 3D geometry or a solid geometry, and when it comes to mensurations, volume, they play a very important role. So, you know, my point of view is, it's good that we have the formulas, but if we don't know, you know, if you don't know how to apply them, right, they are of no use. I've seen experiences with my students, and they, you know, rarely they go back to this particular thing and they cross check, because it's there in head, you know, it's already there in the head. So they rarely, only thing is like, you know, if you feel like there is some confusion, why to make a mistake, just take a reference of here and that's it, done. But yeah, this is one of the most important thing that I will focus on, is spatial right triangles property, because that is something, you know, we always take care of to solve a lot of questions. This is the list on the right hand side. If you see, this is the list of all those particular calculators which are allowed, right? So you need to make sure that you have got the same you know, company. So Casio is one of the most famous one, and then this is the function series that you need to have, like fx1, right? So what, say, as Caroline has already told you that this would be recorded, the session is already been recorded, would be uploaded, you would always get this, right? So you could always get back to this, and always you know, you could just forward it to your friends also if they need it, because this is one of the most important thing, right, you know, which you need to make sure. Okay, Sohan has just asked me like, what are the portions regarding the math? Good question at the good time, Sohan, because the next slide is definitely talking about the same, right? So far we have done this part. Now we will be talking on the topics, the main core of SAT math. How does it look like? What does it talk about? First, algebra, a very simple thing, heart of algebra. Now, what is this algebra all about? We deal with algebra, arithmetic, you know, all of those things. What is algebra all about? Is this a you know, a favorite topic of SAT? How many questions? We'll get to know those during our sessions, right? Right now, this is not a good time to talk on, like, you know, you will always get this sort of question. This is, but yeah, during the session, whenever I tell you that, you know, make a note of this, please make sure that you make a note of it. During the sessions, if I tell you that this is a common kind of question, SAT always frame to trap, make sure that, you know, you have those into your parking lots. This is something that you could just go through into your free time also. Sipping up, you know, a cup of a coffee would also do. Like, you know, while sipping a coffee, you could always go through those pointers and it would be there in your head. So that is not like, you know, we are not into overburdened studies, to be honest, right? So in heart of algebra, right, let's talk about quickly on the topics that it so language and tools of algebra. It seems very easy, right? You know, so there is a number 4 more than the other numbers. So now, you know, translating this particular verbal expression to mathematical expression needs a lot of expertness. It's not about, because see, addition is a commutative property. You will agree to it. Subtraction is not a commutative property, so 3 minus 2 and 2 minus 3 will make a difference, right? So it is much better for us to always have the basic understanding of it. And yes, so we have been doing math from a long time, so it's not that we cannot make a mistake into it. I'm telling it to you, right? Comprehension error when it comes to the verbal expressions can be made by anyone, any moment of time. We have to make sure that what should we do so that we don't do it, okay? Errors can happen any moment. You call them silly errors, you call them blunders, you call them whatever. You may tell me later on, oh my God, sir, was this the meaning of this particular sentence? Oh my God, sir, I thought like this, and I calculated the probability like this. It's okay. I have to take the sessions and tell you something wherein you won't have to worry about you making an errors, okay? Because that can make a difference of at least a lot of pointers, to be honest, right? In SAT, okay? So linear equations, pretty easy. Linear equations in a variable and linear equations in one variable or two variable. We're gonna talk a lot on the linear equations. Functions. This is one of the topic that is very close to my heart. And it is very close to SAT as well. They're going to throw a lot of graphs, they're going to throw a lot of functions questions. I have taken one function question in the slide as well today, so we're just going to look at it. Functions they're going to talk about. So right now what I'm talking about is the basic functions that comes into algebra. There are a lot of those that we could talk about, right? But you don't have to get into calculus, you don't have to get into those maxima minima thing. No, you need to keep yourself very much acquainted till your high school, right? So functions, inequalities, this is one of the key. I'll give you two main I would say the shortcuts to solve this inequality. You don't have to graph it, you don't have to much worry about seeing the range, you don't have to worry about is my the variable lying between, is my variable going extending on the number line, should I graph it to see what is the range coming in into, what should I remember to do for greater than or greater than equal to or less than. No, two rules done. These two rules would be open for linear inequalities and quadratic inequalities also. So again, remember, during the session if I ask you to write something, make sure that is a real clue. Linear graph, whenever they talk about the linear graph, right? So the basic of linear graph is all about the slope. Basic of all linear graph is so they're going to tell you that there is a system of linear equations, okay, and it has no roots. And then there would be an unknown variable given in the place as a coefficient of x or y maybe, and you need to find it out. I don't want you to solve that through the slope method. There is another method to solve this, but when we're going to learn it, of course, during the sessions, right? So this is a property of a linear graph. System of linear equation is something that I have already spoken from here. Inequalities is already here right now. So this is actually the quadratic inequalities and word problem in real life situation. So John has been traveling to, let's say, some city from point A to point B, and he has a speed of a car something, and he's been using a gasoline bought at some cost, so how much he would drove and all those particular unit measurements, conversions and all those things, the real life examples, the real life situation questions that are going to come through. So this is where the algebra actually talks about. Second most important topic. So this is one of the most important topic, which is statistics, right? It's a problem solving and data analysis. Three major things which you need to have command while solving or while learning this is, first, conditional probability questions. Anything that has to deal with probability, that to the tabular form. This could be your first question in the section number 4 itself. This could be your third question in the section number 3 itself. I'm telling it to you, because probability, see, every one of us know that probability is not more than 1, right? So your numerator over denominator thing, whatever the answer would be in a terms of what a fraction. So there is not much calculator needed into it, to be very much honest. They will come up with incomplete tables which you need to complete through. They may give you a complete table, but there are a lot of trap questions which actually tells me that should I take column number 1 over the total? Should I take column number 2 over the total of column number 2, or should I, so let's say there are 2 columns, 2 rows, and there's a total of all students, right? So should I take Spanish speaking students over the total number of students, or Spanish boys and over the total number of Spanish? There are a lot of confusion they create into it, right? And this is a very close a question for SAT, they were gonna always put this question, right? It don't be, I mean, I would say first question in the non-calculator section would be a function, and first question in the calculator section is a conditional probability. Don't get shocked, don't get surprised. This is pretty common what SAT always love to do, right? So this is one thing that I would like you to tell, that probability over here, which is more or less the conditional probability, has to be our key learning. The basics of probability is okay. So one is conditional, another is, there are certain terms in probability, if you don't know the meaning, you won't be able to solve the question. That is the last question for today, so that is something I'm going to take that particular time. This is a very easy part, so you're going to convert the units, right? So it could be like bigger to smaller, smaller to bigger units. You need to be very good when it comes to some customized units. So like, we have some standard units like kilometers for the length, and for like, we have meters, centimeters, and all those things, but we need to deal with inches, right? We need to deal with foot, and furlongs as well, pounds. So these are the common units that they always deal. Pence, cents, right? So dollars, there's nothing called any other currency that gonna work here. Not ADs, not INRs, not yen, no, not won, not real, no euros, right? It would be majorly dollars, and then what? Then it would be more divisions into this, right? So that is not a trouble, like, definitely you're gonna have these particular currencies, right? You don't have to deal into currency conversions, okay? Don't get shocked. You don't have to deal with the currency conversions. You just need to know, like, so if it's if there is one nickel, then how many dimes does it make? If there's a dime, how many cents does it make? And cents makes a dollar. So this is a basic conversion. You should be aware about pounds. You should be aware about ounces. Pound, ounces is a very common question in Griden, not an option based. Pound, ounces is a very common question in the Griden. So let's say Graham was adding up a flour of this much, ounce, and he has this much cup. So how many cups he would be needing to make up this much of pounds? So this is all a conversion based, right? Right now it would be not that easy for anyone to connect to, right? So you just guys have to listen right now. Once the question comes during the sessions, we have a good interactive part of learning there, and of course the solving. So this is ratio, proportion, and percentages. See, percentage is not actually a topic, to be very much honest. Percentage is a concept, okay? I can give ratio is again a concept. I can give you 3 angles in a proper ratio. So will you call that as a ratio question, or will you call that as a triangle question, and you will apply the property of like triangle angle sum of 180 degree, right? If I ask you to do a percentage, so can I only give you the questions on the percentage, like calculate the 5% of this, or what is 20 is what percent of 50? Is that the only percentage? Can't I give it into you profit and loss? Cannot I make a successive discount? Cannot I give you something related to compound interest, exponential function? So percentage can come anywhere. How about if I tell you there are 30% of students who speaks Italian, right? Cannot that be a conditional probability, but the data is given into percentage? So you need to understand that data can be in terms of ratios, data can be in terms of percentage, data can be in terms of proportions, data can have any units, and we need to solve through mixing up, blending those to a same units. So this is data. That is why this particular topic is in data analysis, right? Then probability, we have already modeling the data. So you will have a lot of graphs, scatter plots. 2 questions for sure on the scatter plots, right? So we need to definitely discuss on the scatter plots. We don't have to get into regression line equations. We don't have to get into forming those perfect square methods. No, not at all. No RMS values. We just have to be very good in understanding correlation concepts, like what is 0, what is positive, what is negative, and standard correlation like strong, weak, so that we could understand the plot of scatter plots, right? Because a scatter plot, whenever you're going to read it from any notebook or something, it will always say a baseline fit. but how would you fit the line there, like on the book? Do you have any sort of measurements or something? No, right? And in the AI world, if we talk about the best line fit, it's always about the residual errors. Do you have any some computational softwares there to calculate? No, man, you're giving SAT, you're not into a data industry. So there has to be some way looking at the graph to solve this, right? And that is one thing that we need to capture upon. Okay, so this are something, you know, if you guys, if someone is making a note of it right now, it's a very good thing. Okay, but of course the recording is there, so you don't have to worry about. Tables are pretty easy. Okay, now we're going to talk about something called mean median mode. This seems to be very easy. This seems to be very easy. I can ask you to find a mode for a data. I can ask you to find a median or a mean, and I can ask you to find an arithmetic mean or a geometric mean as well, and I'm sure that you would definitely find it out. That's not a problem. But there you stop, and from one step ahead SAT starts. I don't have to check you on your addition or a multiplication, division or a subtraction skills. I have algebra. I've already checked you on that particular part. That's not at all a trouble for me. Okay, to check you on your logics, how critical you could think on this, how analytical you could be on a particular statement or a data given. That is wherein this particular mean median mode would come through, right? I'll tell you one of the question that I put intentionally in the slide today, right? The most important thing is standard deviation. The most important thing is normal distribution. If you know the confidence interval, good to go. If you know the rules for, like, it's a 68 and then it's like 32 and then it's a 14, and how does it divide and how do we get the symmetrical curve, all good. Don't think this is too much. I'm telling it to you, this is very basic. Whisker plots, this is all related to median, a rectangle or a horizontal, that is something which we're going to talk about. Population samples and random selections, of course. So let's say I tell you that 30% of Germans love let's say Spanish coffee. Now, if I ask you 30% of German loves Spanish coffee, does that mean that 30% of all the German people? No. So that could be a pure sample. I cannot get the whole value on what? Population. Okay. So this is a relatively a non-calculator sections. I mean, like in the terms of math, this is more theory oriented, wherein you just have to put into your mind. But there was one question that I was just going through, and it was like, you need to tell out of 4 graphs in which mean would be less than median. Now, this is something which brings in logic. You will not get a time to have your data there. First of all, will you make a data? Will you write the data there? Will you prepare the data for yourself? How would you get to know whether the mean is less than or greater than median? Right, so that is where the logic comes into picture. Advanced math, it's again a math, so I call it always a math. So now what we gonna see? Graphing circles, so we need to deal with 2 standard, right? So one is a standard equation and one is a general equation of a circle with the center. So x minus passing through center, so x square plus y square equals to r square is 1. Another one is x square plus y square plus something. They're going to ask you to find the radius, the diameter. So that is done. System of equations and complex equation. This is okay. This is something which we're going to turn into linears as well. Exponential expression. One of the most important thing. Whenever the time I will take your function class, and that is supposed to be my, of course, the first or the second session. Generally, it happens in the first session, because when I start with the algebra, I generally take the functions there only. Whenever I'm going to take your functions at the start, I'll tell you what all more functions that we have to deal with, and I'll tell you that the exponential functions and trigonometric functions are something we're going to do later, and this is wherein we're going to land up. Okay, so these are the exponential expression. So it's not necessary always to have a linear growth. You could always have an exponential growth also. You can name it as a geometric progression, you can name it as a geometric sequence, you can say it as a compound interest, population, depreciation, it can fall also, right? But exponential is there. It's not necessary always to have a y equals to mx plus c. There are high chances of you getting y equals to a into b to the power of x. So now how does this change? So that is what we have to talk about, exponential functions. So comes the quadratic, of course. How do we solve the quadratic? No one gonna solve the quadratic by perfect square or something, either the factors or simple the formula method. SAT has this habit of asking sometimes a direct question of quadratic equation in which there would be 4 options which you don't have to solve, but just looking at that square root, you will understand that it has to be solved through a formula. You don't have to waste time in splitting and trying to split it, because it will never ever be splitted, okay, because that question need to be solved through the formula method. This is the observance and presence of mind you should always have, and that is always going to develop once you get into the sessions. Function notations and quadratic functions, so that is one and the same thing. Rational equations and expression, we're going to talk about rationalization. We're going to talk about should we solve, should we simplify and then put the values, should we put the values and then simplify. There are a lot of things that we're going to discuss. So in our math session, it is not that a core learning and I'm giving you homework and you solve. No. We're going to have to learn the concept for sure, right? But we need to make sure what could be the best way to solve the question. What is it that going to give my students a soothing effect of? First, they are not lacking time. Second, they are not making silly errors. Third, they are getting closer to 760, 780, 800 maybe, okay? Fine. So then we have to go simplifying the radical expression would come here. That's not a problem. And trig functions. Trig functions, I'll discuss about the trig functions in the sessions itself. Let's quickly move to the additional topic. So we have a complex number which is like all about, iota. So square root of -1 is equals to I, and that is how we solve this, okay. So this is one of the key that we need to work around. Then area and volume word problems, of course, this is something which we're going to deal once. So main thing here is prism, right, pyramids. Then we have polygons. So we need to deal with the polygons as well here, okay. Area of polygon, if I am asking you to find an area of polygon, like area of hexagon, you should be very well good with like, okay, sir, area of hexagon 30, 60, 90, simple. This is the only special right angle triangle I'm going to get, because hexagon will always have 6 sides, so my all calculation would lead me to 30, 60, 90. Octagon, say 45, 45, 90, because octagon can never ever have anything other than the side called 8. It will always have 8 sides. This is the shortcut. This is the confidence that you develop when you actually have to crack such kind of exams. Congruency and similarity, there is one famous question on similarity. They will give you a kind of a triangle which is not into a 1, but it would be an upside down. So you need to just shadow it properly to understand how do you apply the proportion rule. They're not going to ask you ASA, RHS, no proofs, no theorems, right? Many times it is not even required to apply the congruency, but just for a matter of a fact, we're going to just have a look over it while going through. Angles, arc lengths, of course, they're going to talk about a lot of on the arc lengths. They're going to talk on area of a sector, so arc lengths has to be done. Trigo and the radians, so pi by 180 or 180 by pi, that's it. So pi by 180 or 180 by pi, and that is how you need to deal with this particular thing. There is one more thing here that I would be discussing, and that would be the unit circle, okay, at this point. Circle theorems, 4 major circle theorems, job done, nothing much. We don't have to get into. Tangent line has to be done. Circumference 90 degree has to be done if it's a diameter. And how about the angle subtended at the center, angle subtended at the circumference? Major questions. And polygons, of course, because you're going to get a composite figure many a times wherein you need to actually talk about what? You need to actually talk about the lot of things. So like, it could be a equilateral triangle inscribed in a circle, or a circle inscribed in an equilateral triangle. If someone knows about incircles and all those things, perfect. Otherwise what? So taking in generalized way, we need to get into solution. And guys, see, we are dealing with math. There are a lot of ways to solve one of the question. We are not in a actual competition to find out which is the best way. Thing is, what suits best to me as a student. So right, so let's say so Sanya may like something, right? So like say Son may have conquered or strengthened one of the technique to solve a question, right? Varisha may not be good, may not feel good to apply trigo functions a lot, but she is very, very good into 30, 60, 90 and 45, 45, 90. Her job would be done. Her job would be done as same as other student also. The only thing is, how do you empower on those particular concepts? It's not about taking the concepts. It's all about keeping a close connection with those particular concepts, and that is it, right? My all sessions are interactive, right? So our all sessions are interactive. There's nothing called a my, but it's like all interactive. There are a lot of scope for you to ask, you to solve doubts. There are a lot of things that I do during the sessions. It's not only about, okay, yeah, fine, so this is triangle, this is it, this is it, this is no, right? So there would be a lot of tips and tricks that we're going to talk about. This question that we are talking right now, we are not solving any questions. I'm not going to solve any question, because I always solve one of this sort of question 3 to 4 ways, right? And I may not solve this question, and I'll directly tell you from the option also, but right now this would not connect, right? This is a function question, right? And that is wherein you are getting 4 options. What I actually want to tell you here now, pay attention. I have not read the question honestly, or let's say you have not read the question honestly, but you have just been to the options, right? What is the difference in the option if you could get through? In the first glance, your SAT question is 50% solved if you can get through that particular glance on this. Why? How does this r minus 2 and this d minus 2 makes a difference here? Okay, if you know this, that r minus 2 and d minus 2, and if you quickly get to know what will it be, r minus 2 or d minus 2, I'm telling it to you, one of the option is nullified being an answer and another holds strength to be an answer, and this is wherein you solve it quickly. So it's not necessary that you always solve a question into SAT. There are a lot of things that you're gonna do by the options. See, 70 is the arithmetic mean here, and 5 is the standard deviation. You need to get exactly one standard deviation, which is more than a mean. So that is 75. I don't have to think much about this. Okay, it's the arithmetic mean is there, standard deviation is there, it's exactly more. I just comprehended it has to be one more. 75, job done, my question is done, I'll move to the next slide, right? Don't worry, you're not solving it. Now, why did I put this sort of question? What is the reference of this so easy question? It says 6 times of something, which is n minus p, is equals to 18, okay? And then what is the value of p minus n, right? I could have put any other number also. Why did I put 6 and 18 only? Just because I know that 18 is pretty divisible by 6. So I know that things would be very easy for someone to just cancel out and get 3. But let me tell you, even 60 to 70% of a student have made mistake in this question. This is a pure SAT question and they have made the mistake. Why? Rushing. They have done every calculation in their mind, but putting on the paper have made the mistake. First thing is this. That would give you n minus p is equals to, that is gonna give you n minus p value. Question is asking p minus n. Why does this happen? Because if you have a habit of not reading the question, if just looking at the question in the math, and then if you're gonna answer it, this would be wrong. And you could, one will only cry on this particular kind of a mistake, right? That is what, Caroline in her session, if you have paid attention much, on 1 to 2 lines, she told, you need to read, not to answer. She said it twice. She said you need to read to comprehend. You don't have to read to answer the question, because if you comprehend, you can do anything. It's not only about the answering the questions, and that is what she said, and that is what I mean to know, because she meant that if you're gonna have to comprehend, you have to read it properly, thoroughly. She said you don't have to rush while the reading. That is what I'm saying, because that is the habit you're gonna develop during your RC practicing, and this is what it's gonna help you here also, right? How would you break it? How would you pause yourself? How would you understand? And that is what it's gonna bring in a lot of compatibility between math and the verbal section. Okay, so this is like, so make sure that, okay, and see the option. This is the reason I put this particular question in the slide, because I wanted to show you the option, how good SAT is in putting these options. Can you see 3, -3, 1/3 and -1/3. It's all the way around, it's 3, that's it. Because 6/18 will give you 1/3 and 18/6 will give you 3. Because if I put the other number, if SAT puts 459, anyone would just disregard it. Anyone would discard that to be an answer, because that cannot be an answer. There's no common number between 6 and 18 to be 4. That is why they put this particular sort of question. And this is just a simple arrangement, simplification. It's not even simplification, it's a simple arrangement, but which you will not be allowed to do by the pen. So many a times I'll use this particular statement during the session. You are not allowed to use the pen. You're not allowed to use the pen. So you have to solve mentally. It's okay if the answer goes wrong. We're not actually looking only on the accuracy there. We're looking on to how to get to the accuracy. If you maintain the accuracy, your accuracy would be maintained. Just remember this. If you maintain the accuracy, your accuracy will be maintained always. This is a set of a question. Again, the same sort of question which I've shown you. So you need to understand this is 243, this is 9. There is some relation between this. There is the same some relation between the option. They will not talk about 8. They will not talk about 125. This is something that gives hint also to the student that where should we start the solution from. And then at the last, this question. Now, in this particular question, it says that you are multiplying 4 to each entry on the original list. So there was a list. We don't know how many numbers are there in the list, but you're just multiplying 4 to each. The MP and the D of P be the new mean and the new standard deviation. Okay, so there is a particular list. So let's say if I'm making a list, let's say I'm making a set, and there are a lot of values inside it. Okay, and what I'm doing is I'm multiplying each value by 4. Okay, I'm multiplying each value by 4. Now the concern is, what are they asking? They are asking me the new mean, and then they are asking me the new standard deviation. Now if you don't know, if you know how to find mean and if you know how to find a standard deviation, you are very good into calculations, you know all those squaring things, getting the deviation from the mean, squaring it again, adding up all the values, dividing it, putting it into under a square root sign. So I've told you the method in short how to find the standard deviation. You are very good at it. You have solved like good 50 questions. That will not work here because there is no data given. First thing is this. I told you on the data analysis, mean, median, mode, standard deviation, they're going to throw you the logical question, right? So now you need to actually see, does standard deviation changes on multiplication? Does this mean changes on the multiplication? So these are also key pointers that I'm going to talk more majorly during the sessions, which you're going to write. And of course, one of the questions that I told you in the probability, there are certain terms which you should be very well aware about, because without it, you cannot solve. This is a question where probability is already given. So your first thing is you don't have to find a probability, it is already given. Second thing, if probability is given and this is what you need to find out, anyone can write it as like probability of a particular event A that is happening with, then you're going to write probability of B. Okay, done. Everyone knows it. And then I going to write P, and when the probability happens to be of both, which is intersection, that is what we know. No problem. P of A has been given to me as 0.42. Agreed. Done. No problem. P of B has been given as 0.35. No problem. Both. No information. No information. So, if you pay attention to this word, mutually exclusive, that is what it means, that P of A intersection would be 0. So we need to know 2 to 3 important terms like mutually exclusive. We need to know some important terms like independent event, conditional, and a small part of Bayes theorem, and then we can definitely get over such kind of question. So in math, it would be a total of like terms, terminologies. It's not only about learning. You need to be just have a good presence of mind also. You need to be quick into decision making also, right? So this is what how SAT math looks like. This is what you would be learning during the session. This is how your your learning looks like. This is in short. I can tell you how does your verbal looks like, how your math look like, right? So once this is this is already recorded. Once uploaded, go back to it. Make some pointers if you have questions for your trainers, so that you can always put it across during your sessions, right? Keep practicing, and yeah, just be, I would say, don't be casual, but yeah, you don't have to be so much formal also in learning. Neutral, calm, composed, let the things come to you first and then you start delivering it. That is the best way to learn, right? But okay, fine. So before we end, right, I just want to know if there are any more questions I could answer quickly. If there are any questions right now, if anyone has a question right now, I could answer quickly. And if we don't have any questions, I would say thank you so much for your time, your support, and your patience, of course, for this session. And we're looking forward to train, right, and definitely get to one of the score that university needs, and of course you need it. Okay, yeah, with the same. Okay, let's say goodbye, have a weekend good, and let's start learning quickly. Okay, thank you so much for your time. Take care. You'll see me soon during your sessions. Okay, bye.